Hello! Welcome to English for Shared. Here, you learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's go!
Mike Tyson, the life of a turbulent champion. Mike Tyson is one of those names that even those who never followed boxing have heard of. Known as Iron Mike, he became one of the greatest sporting icons of the 20th century. His career stretches far beyond the ring. It's a mix of glory, controversy, bitter defeats, and unlikely new beginnings. To talk about Tyson is to talk about power, intensity, and a life marked by extremes. Born into poverty and violence, Tyson seemed destined for a life of hardship, but boxing emerged as a way out, transforming a troubled youth into a knockout machine. Soon, the Brooklyn native became the world heavyweight champion at just 20 years old. It was the beginning of a meteoric career that would place him in history as one of the most feared fighters of all time. However, behind the titles and the image of the most dangerous man on the planet lay a human being filled with internal conflicts. Tyson faced battles outside the ring, even tougher than those against his opponents. Prison, drugs, bankruptcy, troubled relationships, and episodes that shocked the world. His life often became a spectacle of excess and tragedy. But Tyson is also synonymous with resilience. After so many falls, he found ways to reinvent himself. He acted in films, published books, created million-dollar businesses, returned to the ring in exhibition fights, and learned to laugh at himself. This ability to get back up, even after so many blows in life, made his story even more fascinating and inspiring. Today, older, Tyson remains a controversial yet admired figure. He speaks openly about his mistakes, his pain, and even his addictions, trying to transform his experience into lessons. His journey shows that despite setbacks, it's possible to find new paths and start over. Mike Tyson's life is both a warning and an inspiration. Childhood and discovery of boxing. Mike Tyson was born on June 30th, 1966, in Brooklyn, New York City, one of the most violent and impoverished areas of the city at the time. His childhood was marked by the absence of his father and the struggle of his mother, Lorna, to support the family. From a young age, Tyson was surrounded by violence, street fights, and financial hardship. This harsh reality would shape his impulsive personality and, at the same time, his survival skills. As a child, Tyson developed a shy demeanor and was often bullied because of his fast speech and appearance. To defend himself, he began getting into constant fights on the streets of Brooklyn. The aggressiveness he used to protect himself eventually became a hallmark of his life. But it also paved the way for others to recognize the talent behind his brute strength. By the age of 11, Tyson had already been involved in dozens of petty crimes and ended up in juvenile correctional facilities. In one of these facilities, fate began to change his life. There, he met Bobby Stewart, a counselor and former amateur boxer, who quickly realized that this unruly boy possessed something rare: speed, strength, and a natural fighting instinct. Stewart introduced Tyson to a legendary trainer, Cus D'Amato. This meeting proved pivotal. D'Amato not only trained Tyson in boxing, but also gave him discipline, focus, and, in a sense, a father figure he'd never had. Cus believed Tyson could become the youngest heavyweight champion in history and dedicated all his energy to making that dream a reality. From D'Amato, Tyson learned not only fighting techniques, but also life philosophy. The trainer would say phrases that left a deep impression on him, such as, "Fear is a fighter's greatest ally, if you know how to control it." These lessons helped Tyson transform his fury into energy in the ring. He trained for hours and hours, tirelessly, with his mind focused on a single goal: winning.
Tyson's adolescence, though still full of challenges, was saved by boxing. The sport became his only escape from a life of crime and poverty. Little by little, that rebellious boy with no prospects began to develop into a disciplined athlete driven by the dream of conquering the world. The seed of a champion was beginning to blossom.
Meteoric rise and glories in the ring. When Tyson turned pro in 1985, he was just 18 years old. In his very first fights, he captured the world's attention with his devastating style. He didn't wait for his opponent. He never backed down. He advanced aggressively, landing fast, heavy blows, and almost always knocked his opponents down in the first round. It was as if no one stood a chance against him. In a short time, Tyson racked up impressive victories. His fame grew not only in the United States, but worldwide. People gathered to watch his fights, often unable to finish their popcorn before the fight ended, such was the speed of his knockouts. The public saw something different in him, not just brute strength, but also technique, focus, and an almost animal instinct to strike at the right moment. The pinnacle of his rise came in 1986, when, at age 20, Tyson became the youngest world heavyweight champion in history, defeating Trevor Berbick. This feat seemed impossible, but he achieved it with authority, showing the world that he had arrived to change the history of boxing. It was a historic achievement. A poor kid from Brooklyn now held the most coveted title in the sport. In the years that followed, Tyson completely dominated the division. Seasoned fighters who had previously intimidated opponents trembled in his presence. His fight against Michael Spinks in 1988 is still remembered as one of the quickest and most shocking. Just 91 seconds were enough for Tyson to knock out an opponent who had been undefeated until then. At that moment, he seemed invincible, a true monster of the ring. The media turned him into a global celebrity. Magazines, newspapers, and TV shows craved coverage. Tyson wasn't just a champion, he was a cultural phenomenon. His figure inspired young fighters and frightened his opponents. Furthermore, his lifestyle attracted attention. Luxury cars, mansions, jewelry, and parties were part of his routine, showing the world how much he had achieved in such a short time. This period, known as Tyson's peak, left lasting marks on boxing. He wasn't just an athlete, he was a force of nature. His name became synonymous with power and intimidation. That poor kid from Brooklyn had become a living legend, someone who seemed unattainable. But behind all this glory, the first signs began to emerge that absolute success also brought dangers.
Personal problems and controversies. With fame and money also came the first major personal difficulties. Tyson, still very young, was unprepared to deal with the pressure of the media, sudden wealth, and constant spotlight. His life began to become a spectacle outside the ring. Public fights, troubled relationships, and accusations surrounded him. He had conquered the world, but seemed increasingly lost within it. In 1990, Tyson's first major sporting downfall came, a loss to Buster Douglas, a little-known opponent considered a complete underdog. The defeat shocked the boxing world and marked the beginning of a turbulent period in his career. Tyson, who until then seemed invincible, showed signs of fragility. From that point on, his image as a champion began to blur with that of someone unstable and vulnerable. 2 years later, in 1992, Tyson was convicted of raping model Desiree Washington. The case gained enormous international attention, and he was sentenced to 6 years in prison, serving almost 3. It was one of the darkest moments of his life. From an idolized champion, he became seen as a criminal. This period left deep scars on his career and public image. Even after his arrest, the problems continued. Tyson's drug use, episodes of aggressive behavior, and impulsive decisions fueled even more negative headlines. He seemed unable to find a balance between his talent in the ring and the chaos in his personal life. The most controversial episode of his career came in 1997, in his rematch with Evander Holyfield. In a fit of rage, Tyson bit his opponent's ear, tearing off a chunk of it. The scene was seen around the world and became one of the most shocking events in the history of the sport. As a result, he was disqualified and suspended from boxing for over a year. Tyson also faced financial problems. Despite having accumulated over $300 million throughout his career, he spent excessively on mansions, luxury cars, exotic animals, and parties. In 2003, he declared bankruptcy, demonstrating that money, like fame, can disappear quickly when not managed responsibly. Getting back on your feet, life outside the ring. After so many falls, Tyson decided to seek new paths. He even tried a few professional fights, but he never returned to being the same unbeatable champion of the 1980s. His body no longer responded as quickly, and his mind was scarred by past mistakes. However, instead of sinking completely, he began to find ways to reinvent himself. One of his first initiatives was to open up in interviews and documentaries. Tyson began to speak openly about his life, childhood traumas, abuse, excesses, and even regrets. This more human side surprised many and helped him gradually rebuild his image. People who previously saw him only as a monster began to see him as someone vulnerable,
capable of learning from his mistakes. He also ventured in film and television. He appeared in films such as The Hangover, Don't Marry, and participated in comedy series and programs, showcasing a fun and charismatic side. These appearances helped bring him closer to a younger audience who hadn't seen his boxing glory days. Another important step was in the business world. Tyson invested in properties, ventures, and, more recently, became one of the strongest names in the legal cannabis market in the United States with the brand Tyson 2.0. This business became a success, generating millions of dollars and helping him rebuild his fortune. In his personal life, there were also significant changes. Tyson remarried, had children, and became more present as a father and husband. Despite the difficulties and pain of losing a daughter, he managed to find a new sense of balance and purpose in his family life. Gradually, Tyson became an inspirational figure, not only for his strength in the ring, but for his ability to rise after so many falls. His story, once marked by scandal and excess, began to be told as a journey of learning, resilience, and new beginnings.
Comebacks, age, and recent controversies. Even after officially retiring from boxing, Mike Tyson never managed to completely stay away from the ring. The appeal of the public and his passion for the sport brought him back on a few occasions. In 2020, for example, he had an exhibition fight against Roy Jones Jr., which attracted millions of viewers worldwide. The event proved that, even at 54, his name still had incredible power to mobilize crowds. In 2024, Tyson made headlines again when he faced Jake Paul, the controversial YouTuber turned boxer. The fight generated enormous anticipation, bringing together completely different generations. Despite his age and physical limitations, Tyson entered the ring with courage, but ended up losing by unanimous decision. The result demonstrated that time passes for everyone, but it didn't diminish the public's respect for his story. Beyond his fights, Tyson also drew attention for some surprising statements. He revealed that he had used drugs like fentanyl throughout his career, primarily to deal with intense physical pain. He spoke openly about the substance's devastating effects, including withdrawal symptoms. This honesty shocked some fans, but it also raised a warning about the behind-the-scenes nature of such a demanding sport. Outside the ring, Tyson remains a media figure. He's launched podcasts, appeared on talk shows, and even announced a new solo show called Return of the Mike, co-written with his wife, Lakia Spicer. This project shows a more reflective Tyson, willing to laugh at himself and share stories without censorship. Still, the controversies persist. He is frequently questioned about his past and must navigate a duality. On the one hand, a legendary champion. On the other, a man with a history of serious mistakes. This mix of glory and controversy makes him one of the most complex and controversial figures in the history of sports. Despite everything, Tyson remains active and restless. At nearly 60, he still plans new performances and exhibition fights,
such as the one scheduled against Floyd Mayweather for 2026. More than just results, these fights show that Tyson has never ceased to be, in essence, a modern gladiator, someone who always returns to the arena, even after so many battles.
Legacy, lessons, and what we can learn. Mike Tyson left a profound mark on boxing and global culture. In the ring, he will be remembered as one of the greatest heavyweights in history, possessing impressive strength and an aggressive style that revolutionized the sport in the 1980s. Many experts still place him on the same level as legends like Muhammad Ali and George Foreman, each with their own greatness. But Tyson's legacy isn't limited to titles and knockouts. His life reveals the dark side of fame, how wealth, pressure, and personal mistakes can destroy a brilliant career. He experienced extreme highs and lows, proving that being a world champion doesn't mean winning every battle in life. This duality makes him a figure as fascinating as it is tragic. At the same time, his story is also about resilience. Tyson made many mistakes, but he never gave up. He reinvented himself several times, found new sources of income, rebuilt his image, and learned to talk about his weaknesses. This process of self-discovery and reconstruction makes him an example that it's possible to start over even after major setbacks. Today, he's a mix of legend and ordinary human being. He talks about spirituality, philosophy, family, and even his fears, revealing a more sensitive side that contrasts with the brutal image of his fighting days. This vulnerability has won over a new generation of fans who admire him not only for his strength, but also for his honesty in exposing his weaknesses. Tyson's legacy also holds important lessons: the value of discipline, the need for good mentors, and the risks of emotional instability and financial mismanagement. His life is a living lesson in how success can turn into failure without balance, but also how failure can be transformed into learning. In the end, Mike Tyson is a character that transcends sport. He represents glory and pain, triumph and defeat, spectacle and human drama. His story will continue to be told not only as that of a great boxer, but as that of a man who fought, above all, against himself, and who, despite it all, still inspires millions around the world.
Conclusion. Mike Tyson's life is a true roller coaster. From a poor, lost kid in Brooklyn, he became the youngest heavyweight world champion in history and a sports icon. At the same time, he faced arrests, controversy, addiction, and bankruptcy. Few athletes have experienced so many extremes in such a short time, and perhaps that's what makes his story so unique and unforgettable. Tyson showed the world the power of discipline and talent, but he also made it clear how fame and excess can ruin even the greatest champions. He experienced both sides of the coin, absolute glory and public downfall. His trajectory is both a warning about the dangers of success without balance and an inspiration about the ability to rise after major mistakes.
In recent years, he's become more candid about his failures, pain, and regrets. This openness has brought him closer to others, revealing not only the unbeatable fighter, but also the vulnerable man who always existed behind the gloves. Tyson has learned to laugh at himself, reinvent himself, and turn scars into lessons. Thus, Mike Tyson leaves the world a legacy that goes far beyond boxing. He teaches us that life is made up of daily struggles, both inside and outside the ring, and that even after a fall, there's always a chance to start over. His story continues to resonate as a portrait of human strength, fragile and powerful at the same time, and as an invitation to never give up on reinventing ourselves. And if you liked this story, leave a comment. See you next time.